Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me, as always, Josh Mansfield. It is Tuesday, March 21st, and we are talking Open at Austin. The third Elite Series event of the year, wrapped up on Sunday, and we get a little bit of a break here. A couple weeks off before our next Elite Series event. We do have Texas State's, a silver event, coming up this weekend. But some time off before the Nashville Music City Open, and then on to Champions Cup, the first major of the year. We're going to talk more about that later this week as we kind of get ready for major time, Josh. You know, it's as I've said, I said it last year, I'll say it again. So nice to have a major in the spring.
Especially on years like this where Worlds is so late in the year again, because it's on the East Coast. Otherwise, I mean, we would be going until European Open would be first major time, and then another long break before end of season, and then we just cram them all in. So, yeah, man, Champions Cup has been an amazing decision by the PDGA.
For the third straight tournament, we have unique winners here in 2023. There has been lots of parity so far this year. Paige Pierce gets the win in FPO. After looking a little lost at Waco, a tournament that she just never really seems to play very well at, big time bounce back and gets the win. And over in MPO, Gannon Buhr makes a furious final round charge and takes down the win, shooting 10 under, and was just up at the top of the leaderboard the whole weekend long. Really impressive showing from Gannon, and we will talk to him a little bit later in the show. I want to start in MPO, Josh, because we have not seen this. I mean, it feels like every year we talk about, you know, there's more players in the mix. We could see different people winning anytime. We now obviously have 3 different winners this year. But not only that, of all of the players who have played the first 3 Elite Series of the year, only 2 of them have finished in the top 10 all 3 times. Just 2 players in the whole field have finished top 10 all 3 times. Can you name them?
One's Calvin.
Yes. Who has not missed a podium yet. We'll talk about that.
Yep. The other one, top 10. Is it Kevin?
It's a good guess, but it's not Kevin. It is Kyle Klein.
Oh, okay.
Who finished 10th this weekend 10th. To keep that alive.
Kevin was 16, yeah.
So, yeah, pretty interesting. I think Kevin just, I think he missed out this week, right?
Yeah, Kevin was 16 this week.
Yeah. So,
thought he was higher.
Pretty interesting stuff. So, let's dive in here. You know, Gannon Buhr, this is his first DGPT Elite Series win, which is kind of surprising when you think about it. But, of course, you know, he won the major last year at USDGC. He had the silver win last year as well, and now he has the Elite Series win, which puts him into rare company. Mm-hmm. There are not that many players who have all 3, of course, but let's exclude the silver because many of the top pros don't even play them. Eagle McMahon has never played a silver event. But just to have an Elite and a major, like, the ascension continues for Gannon. Like, he is now, you know, there's only like 20 people who've ever done that all time.
Is it a surprise, though? I mean, we knew that Gannon, the way that he's playing, that he was going to get one. It was just a matter of time. Like we talked about with Kyle Klein, though, and as we quoted from Calvin's interview, I think Gannon's got to be thrilled that this came so early in the season, because this was, you know, the monkey on his back all season last year, because he wasn't able to get the win. He got close so many times, but unable to really close it out, and now is able to do so early and can just focus on playing his game, right? He's got the win. He already has a major under his belt. A lot of those pressures that exist for other players, whether that be trying to get a major, like Calvin, for example, or if it's just a question of trying to get an Elite Series win, is one that both have just been answered and in recent history. And there is a level of comfort that I think should come with that, especially given the contract issues around Gannon. He has to be thinking that, well, I've got to be looking for another contract next year. And this continues, you know, if he's the best time to sign a contract is right after you win USDGC. But continuing to win is going to just raise that profile. And you got to think that he's just feeling relieved that it's not the case of, oh, I won USDGC and then just had a very subpar year this year and isn't able to get the contract that he was hoping for.
Well, obviously, we're going to talk to him about the contract situation when we talk to him in a little bit. So we'll save more of that conversation for our discussion with Gannon. As I said in the Rapid React show for subscribers on Sunday night, I think what I find most impressive about the performance is just the mentality that he brings to the game at such a young age. It's not, just the physical tools, because a lot of these players out here have all of the tools necessary to win. And you could argue that there's players that have more skills in X, Y, and Z categories than Gannon. I mean, Gannon's probably the best putter on tour, but, he's maybe not the number one forehand thrower, the number one backhand thrower. You name all of the other various skills. Gannon might not be number one, but I mean, he has a killer mentality. Like, he talked about how he was not phased. He didn't just complain about the course. He thought to himself, this is the course. I like the course. Let's go out here and do what I can do. And you had a lot of other players talking about how they didn't like the course, complaining. And, does that cost them strokes? It probably does.
I would think so. It's got to be a mental burden to play something that you are convinced that you don't like. And for Gannon then to, Paul said that he had a hard time getting into a rhythm. And that I think Gannon demonstrates that positive mentality can really allow you to just kind of settle in, and in some of the areas go on autopilot, right? When your putter is on autopilot, when you're not thinking about it, that creates strokes, that creates opportunities. And so I 100% think that played a role in Gannon's win here.
I think it's interesting, the Macbeth's comment about rhythm. I think that's maybe something that a new course is going to cause as a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know the course very well. You've only played it once or twice, right, as a practice round. And there's holes that are probably not perfectly tuned and cause it to feel a little herky-jerky. And it's also just a demanding course. I mean, we talked about this in the Rapid Reacts. Like, there are a lot of shots required out there to be successful. You have to be creative. You have to be able to throw, both right to left and left to right shots regularly. I thought the challenge of the course was up to the level of the Pro Tour. I mean, the highest score we saw all weekend was a 12 down, which that's a great round on almost any course. But, you see 12 downs on a regular basis on some tracks that the pros play in MPO. But this weekend, that was the best round by a couple of strokes. And let's tip the cap to Cole Redalin, who shot that 12 down. What was it rated, Josh?
1092.
Whew. Cole Redalin coming out of the gates crazy this season. He now, Josh, he's finished with an event rating of 1040 or better. So when you average out the rounds, 3 times in his career at an Elite Series or a major. He did it at Ledgestone back in 2021, and now he's done it twice this year at Waco, where he averaged 1055 to finish on the podium, and then this weekend ultimately finishes in 14th. It's kind of the Cole Redalin experience a little bit. Mm-hmm. Shoot the best round of the tournament by a mile and then kind of come out pretty darn flat the next round. But, I think we're seeing the overall level has risen a little bit for Redalin. At least that's what it looks like through 3 events this year.
What's remarkable about Cole to me is that both the ceiling and the floor are rising together. It's not just the case that he's getting better and able to push the higher rounds, or the case that his consistency has gone up somewhat over previous years, but both are moving together. And that's a sign of a player who you should continue to keep in the conversation. So many of these young players that jump up, we see have one really, really good tournament, and it demonstrates that their ceiling may be higher than we gave them credit for, but doesn't often speak to their floor. And I think Cole is showing us that he is progressively moving both in the right direction. And that, to me, signals a player that is a must watch for the rest of this season.
What a crazy final day in MPO. I mean, Gannon wins by 2 strokes over Simon, who, by the way, was playing great disc golf. Very strange weekend for him overall, where he shot 18 under in the back 9 through 3 rounds and only 2 under in the front 9. It's just like, what? But, he couldn't score enough in the front 9. If he had a decent front 9 in the final round, he would have won this tournament. And so then, but you have a million players who could have won this thing. Calvin could have won. Austin Turner was on a crazy heater and then gave back 2 strokes with a double bogey on 17, and that was it for him. Eagle was in the mix for a while until a couple bad holes to start the back 9. Paul was in the mix and then, blew up with a double bogey. I mean, there was a lot of medicine consumed out there by pros. And, it looked again like at Waco that we were going to have a playoff because you had 7 guys within 1 shot midway through the round. But it just seemed like nobody could find the shot making except Gannon. Like, he was the one guy who was consistently making the clean shots down the stretch. And even he took a bogey late.
That late bogey, really, I mean, so Calvin and Gannon stay neck and neck up until, they come into the round neck and neck, right? And then Calvin comes on the course and immediately starts off with the double bogey. Boom. And as soon as that happens, the U-Disc win probability drops Calvin from 17. Him and Gannon are tied at 17% on the win probability. And
they were tied coming into the round.
Correct. Well, were they tied? Yeah. They were. Yep. So, Calvin comes in, double bogeys. He's on lead card. Gannon, at this point, is now 14 down. And Gannon's win percentage jumps to 30%, 29%, and Calvin drops to 5%. And then Gannon's just climbs, and nobody eclipses even 3%. I mean, it is by round 9. So through the front 9, it has Gannon at the 30, and everyone else still at 1 or less. And then as soon as Gannon gets through hole 13 and is now at 20 under par, it's got him at 72%. That late bogey drops Gannon to 80% and bumps Simon to 20. But then, Gannon gets another birdie and closes the door, and it's kind of game over at that point. But you're right that Simon is the only one who even had a remote possibility based on the win percentage, at least, after Calvin kind of took that double bogey that began to challenge Gannon, and it came in the back 9. Simon was at 4% going into the round, and his percentages were much higher near the late half. And so you didn't see Simon climb with Gannon and stay close. It was the case where Simon fell out of contention and then comes back in the back 9 and brings himself as an important conversation point. Like you said, very interesting round. I think it's very remarkable that we have another chase card winner in MPO to start this year. I mean, we're already 2 in.
Jomez is in shambles. I'm just teasing, but I feel bad for them. This particular tournament, it feels almost impossible to feel like you've told the story of the event from the lead card coverage. Yeah. No, it's very interesting. The win probability stuff for me, like during the live coverage, I find it to start to feel like a little too much. Like I don't really want to see it that much. I think I kind of want to watch. But looking at it after the fact here, Josh, I find it really interesting because I remember at one point in the middle of the round, I was like, okay, well, Gannon Buhr is now in the driver's seat. He controls his own destiny. But looking at it here, like the U-Disc win probability was way more bullish on Buhr winning this tournament way earlier in the round than I was. And it's partly because, Austin Turner was playing really well and he was at the top of the leaderboard, but he was, 3 or 4 holes ahead.
Right.
And so the ability for the computers basically to adjust for that, by the time, so Gannon was at 30% coming into the back 9, but like no one else was even anywhere close. Like basically it was like, if Gannon blows up, somebody else could win, but like no one else is really even in the picture at that point.
I have one small correction to make. I had not included Eagle McMahon because he fell so far down the leaderboard. If you add Eagle McMahon into this win percentage, it actually has Eagle at 50% with Gannon only at 30. That feels more correct to the storyline that we were talking about. It's at hole 12 where Gannon eclipses Eagle, and then Eagle begins to fall off. That's when Gannon takes the driver's seat. Makes much more sense. It's hard to remember Eagle was on the lead card when you just look at standings, because Eagle fell down to that big kind of hodgepodge at 6th, right, with the 4-way tie.
Well, and as great as Austin Turner was playing, he never got above 10%.
No.
Pretty interesting. But yeah, I think it was just one of those rounds where, you had a lot of players who had opportunities, and it just, you have to stay so focused out there. I mean, you see Calvin Heimburg take 2 double bogeys in a round. Like, how often does that even happen? It's incredibly rare. Heimburg, by the way, has now extended his podium streak to 4 straight events, 3 to begin this year, and then the end last season. He's only done that one other time. He did it from 2020 MVP into the following season at 2021 LVC. So, that's not a surprise that, that this is a kind of like some of the best disc golf we've seen from Calvin Heimburg. And as I said on Sunday, I think that he's been the best player so far this season.
Well, and that is supported by the Pro Tour standings. He is 31 points ahead of Kyle Klein. And then he's got almost 50 points on Paul McBeth. And Paul McBeth has 50 points from a silver event. So, I mean, after that, it's Ezra, who played 2 silver events. And Kevin is the next player without any silver events at 180, which means Calvin's got 64 points on 3rd place. That is a fast margin of, separation between those players. And that's the rule of the 8 rule, right? Where you're only able to have 8 events that carry over and their drops. That means that margin should close, because other people will have good tournaments and they'll get to drop some of these. But that's just a really impressive margin to pull on people that quickly.
I would like to note that one player that we haven't even mentioned yet, who was very much in this tournament, is Vaino Makala. And he just couldn't quite come up with the shots when he needed them. He had a lot of circle 2 looks, couldn't cash any of them in. He went 0 for 7 and missed a couple of, I think maybe just missed 1 circle 1 putt, but too long of a drought in the middle of the round, and he just slowly, painfully dropped back. No like monster errors, but just couldn't cash in on birdies. And it feels like a plague for some of these European MPO players, just like not quite enough putting to win tournaments. And like, when are we going to see that change? Is that going to be the difference maker? Because, some of these guys can throw it with the best of them.
Vaino Makala was 0 for 7 in the final round in circle 2 putting.
Right.
If he shoots even
and almost
average,
all of those on birdie looks, Josh.
And if he even shoots average, that gets him back a couple of strokes and he's in the mix. And so missing 7 is that's tough. That's a lot of looks. It's a lot of looks. 72% circle 2 in regulation. I'm curious. Let's take a look at how that stacks up against the field. Calvin Heimburg was first in. I must have looked at it. Oh, I was just looking at round 3. So let's just pull round 3. I'm curious how that looks. I mean, that keeps him in the top 10, but James Proctor. Jeez. James Proctor had the highest circle 2 in regulation in the final round. Do you want to take a guess at what that number was?
80%.
89%.
Wow.
Now, almost 9 out of 10 shots, he was inside circle 2 at least.
It probably means he got 17 of 18, right? Or I guess it could be 16 of 18.
Yeah.
I'm surely I could do the math. But anyway, yes, great round.
Impressive round.
James Proctor, I mean, he's been really solid to start this season.
He has.
I want people to realize that. Like, he switched over TSA discs. He's got the open bag, and his level has really gone up. I mean, we've seen him. He's 14th, 10th, and 3rd to start the season. He's inside the top 10 in the Pro Tour standings.
Mm-hmm.
And, we'll see what happens. His rating is currently 1021, but he's playing above that level right now for sure.
Here's the other thing. I remember, because I came on the show in late 2021, I think.
Sounds right.
Yeah, because I'm in my 3rd season now. Okay. When I came on, we go into the West Coast swing, and I didn't know much about James Proctor. And at that time, James Proctor was 1040 plus rated.
That's right. Most of them playing on the West Coast.
That's right. He only and I remember you saying James Proctor is a guy to watch every time you come to the West Coast swing, because I mean he just plays fantastic. He was a West Coast player, played well, has another career that he had done, and now is touring more. His rating slowly dropped down to the 1020s, but now seems to be playing his best disc golf since back in 2021 and is touring more, which means it feels like a kind of growth and leveling up that can mean that he'll be in contention, not just a really good local player who shreds at those other tournaments and then shows up on Pro Tour and he's there and we talk about him, but it's not much. I mean, he is really starting to force us to take him seriously this season, and that's really exciting to see.
Yeah, I mean, he was at 1042 in July 2021, and he's dropped 20 points off his rating. But maybe we're seeing him come back around and start to look like the player that we saw a couple of years ago. And hey, the open bag thing, maybe there's something to it. I think there's an article in there somewhere about what are we seeing when players go open bag? How does it affect their rating? At least in theory, it should help you be better, right? It should. You get to throw the favorite discs.
Yeah,
I would think. Okay, one more thing on MPO, and then we got to talk about Paige and Kristen. Paul McBeth has now finished 2 events in a row, Josh, with a double-digit finishing place, 10th, 13th. That's only happened twice elsewhere in his career, where he had back-to-back events, not, 9th or better. 2022, DDO and OTB Open, and then in 2018, it happened at Jonesboro and GBO, now DDO. So do you make anything of this? Is this just, the foibles of Texas and Waco and a course he didn't like here at Austin, or is there something more?
I don't know. Every time I try and read into something more and say, and say Paul McBeth is, I think there was one point last year where we talked about this might truly be the changing of the guard moment. It just, and then he wins 2 majors, right? No, only 1 major, because he loses at European Open.
Yeah, he just won Worlds.
Yeah, just win Worlds. I always think he wins 2 because I think he wins European Open. I want him and Eagle both to have a win from that tournament. Paul could finish top 10, around top 10, between 5 and 15th on every Elite Series, and he still could win 3 majors this season. I don't think it's the likely scenario, but it's still a possibility to me. Paul is still around close enough. If he was finishing outside top 20, then I think we can start chatting a little bit, but I don't know. I have a hard time getting too excited ever about the Paul McBeth having struggles train, because I always get proven wrong very shortly thereafter.
Yeah, he posted on Instagram that his game feels good, but he feels like mentally he's been a little bit out of it, and he thinks that he's figured it out. It's a classic Paul McBeth post.
Classic Paul McBeth
but you know
post.
what? Hey, I mean, when we get around a Champions Cup, he shot 17 under last year.
Yeah.
You cannot count this guy out at the majors ever. He seems to always find a way to raise his level, no matter where he's been at coming into the tournaments.
Yeah.
Last thing, Simon Lizotte, Josh, 2nd place finish. I think Simon looks great. Maybe a little bit weird with the front 9 back 9 splits, but at the end of the day, I think he was clearly one of the best players out there this weekend. Are you gonna back off on the Simon is hurt take?
I am. Yeah, I mean, I definitely should. He's proving that he's still good to go. I mean, it's a very complete tournament for him. He shoots just under. He shoots 9.39 strokes gained tee to green. That's good for sixth. He has 6.42 strokes gained putting, which is fourth. And I mean, those are neither of his circle 1, circle 2 are standout by themselves, but the completeness of them together. 9 OBs was a little bit high. There was Eagle at 10, and then Kyle Klein at 10. And then after that, it was Simon in the top 10 in terms of OB strokes. So a little bit high there, but all in all, I mean, yeah, that's definitely an overreaction on the Simon take about the injury. And so glad to see Simon back.
We'll see what happens as we move forward this year. So let's turn our attention over to FPO. Paige Pierce getting the win. Ultimately ends up being a fairly comfortable closeout. She ends up beating Katrina Allen by just 2 strokes, but Katrina was not really in the mix. Paige gave 2 strokes back on 17 and 18 that didn't really matter. Mm-hmm. And, Katrina got 3 birdies late to kind of pull herself up into second place, but never really challenged for the actual win. So Paige Pierce, it just took her one tournament to knock the rust off, and now she's winning again. So I think everybody needs to calm down, including me. But like I said after Waco, I want to see Paige have the fire again. And I feel like we saw that a little bit more this weekend, like a little bit of sharper focus overall. And I'm just glad that, Paige is right here and not going anywhere, even on a course that's while it required distance, was a little bit more on the technical side rather than the bomber side.
Mm-hmm. This continues after the Vegas overreactions show. We are now 3 for 3 from Paige, Kristen, and Katrina in the wins column. Right. I said it was going to be 18 to 21, and it's off to a good start. And it really, I think the big thing here, it feels like those 3 are just all playing amazing disc golf right now. Kristen is not. Sorry, I should clarify. I think Kristen feels the most off of those 3 and still was able to get a win last week at Waco. And so but Paige and Katrina just feel really strong right now, that they're playing really well with Paige with this event, and was off at Waco, but it's nice to see that she's able to shoot even and just kind of coast into that final. And that win.
And Kristen's putter just it's bad right now.
It is.
I mean, and she ends up losing strokes gained to the field on the putting green. She shoots 59% from circle 1X and 11% from circle 2. I mean, 59% from C1X is just awful for Kristen Tatar. Yeah. And I think this happens to pros. She was still good tee to green. She was really good. She was one of the top at the tournament. She outshot Paige tee to green.
Yeah.
But it was just off. And we saw this back at Waco too. And really she kind of got delivered that tournament on a silver platter by Ella Hansen. And, had to hit just a couple clutch shots to win it. And, but the putting woes continue. She was missing C1X putts in the final round of Waco. It looked like she was not going to win that tournament either. She probably shouldn't have won it. And, then with Paige playing better, there was just, Kristen kind of just took herself out of it, particularly in the final round. It's the first time she's missed the podium, Josh, in a long time. Remember, she never missed the podium last year. So the streak comes to an end after 16 straight Elite Series and major podiums dating back to the 2021 Des Moines Challenge. It's pretty amazing. I asked the Statmando guys, what's the biggest streak that we've seen? Because, we haven't seen something like this in a while, it feels like, in FPO. The biggest streak goes to Katrina Allen, who from 2013 to 2016 went 37 straight Elite Series and major tournaments finishing on the podium. That is probably a record that will not get broken.
Yeah.
That's pretty insane.
Yeah.
But it is true that this is like the longest streak in quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually the most recent streak of that magnitude. So that, ending in 2016, everybody else's streaks, Des Redding, Val Jenkins, who had a couple big long streaks, JK, those were all back in, early 2010s and dating back into even the 90s.
Yeah.
When it was just a different game, different field.
I mean, you have to also give Kristen the nod, because I think that to do what it's I guess the argument can go both ways, but I think her streak is more difficult because she isn't playing all the time. And so to come back to the United States after, 2 months of not playing and be able just to step right back in where you left off, some could make the argument that because she's playing less, there's, less opportunities to miss it and to screw up. But to still go 16 and make this list, and despite having those kind of breaks, I think is just so remarkable and impressive. And while it is not the 37 that, like you said, I think will ever be touched, it is still an impressive feat nonetheless, and something that I'm sure she's very proud of.
Paige Pierce had gone 8 starts in a row at Elite Series and Majors without a win. That was the longest streak in her career with no win. So she snaps the negative streak, and Kristen snaps her positive streak. So, meanwhile, Katrina Allen has now finished inside the top 10, 3 straight tournaments to start the year, and continues to look really sharp. So, I think we're off to a great start to the season. Like, I don't think it's obvious who the best player has been so far. I'd probably say Katrina, but, it's too early to say much of anything.
Yeah, and it's interesting, all in all, to me, because so if you take, let's just do standings real fast before you look. So sure. Katrina Allen is number 1 in the standings with 235 points. Second place is Sarah Hokum, but she is buoyed by 76 points from silver events in the wraparound tour.
Right.
And this early in the season, that's going to play. Once we're, through Champions Cup, no more caveats with that. But right now, those two equal more than any one elite event that she has on her schedule right now.
Right.
So, right. I'm a hard pressed to give it too much weight. But who do you think is in second place after Katrina Allen? They don't have any silver events.
And it's probably somebody who's played all 3 tournaments and played well.
Correct.
I'm going to guess it's Ella.
It is Ella. It is Ella with a 2nd, 4th, and 7th place finish at 207 points, not far behind. It's funny because, I picked Ella for my podium, which obviously didn't happen. But still, a 7th place finish at a technical course, if that's Ella's off week, where, she was in the lead and tied for the lead after round 1 and then falls down to 7th, that's...
All right. I asked this in the Discord. How long does Ella have to play at this level before we consider her having leveled up her game, in a meaningful sense?
Yeah.
And we're not far off. Like, if I see 1 or 2 more tournaments like this, it's like, okay, Ella has gone to a new tier. She's not at the Kristen Page Katrina tier, not yet, but 1 tier below that. I think that's probably where she sits right now.
Yeah. And
pretty impressive.
What's impressive also to me, one last thing to add, who else do you put in that tier? Missy Gannon right now. We haven't seen Val Mondahano because
Owen Scoggins
of the injury. Probably Owen Scoggins.
Got to.
Maybe Holland, but Holland's also got a 21st finish, right? I think Ella's been the better player of the two that feel very similar. But then look at those other people, right? I mean, Macy Vela Diaz, Maria Oliva, those are benefited by silver wins. Kristen obviously just a little off her game. Haley plays well, but I mean the story of Haley, 23rd this week, right? Just played terrible. So
blew up her tournament with a terrible final round. Henna's got a couple top 10s. Is Henna in that conversation? She's probably in that conversation, but the the consistency level isn't always there.
And that's that second tier. You either get people who are really consistent, or you get people who have the win potential, right? And have that factor. And that's where they sit. And Ella almost feels like she should be the top of that group the way she's playing right now. Where, Missy's got the strong consistency, but doesn't have that, an own too, right? Real consistent, but doesn't have that win factor.
Feels like Ella has the win factor.
Right. And she's showing us the consistency right now. Right. It's incredible. Right. I mean, really only matched in Missy sometimes in past years, but really feels like a Valerie Mondojano, right? Very consistent player who also is able to take wins. Now, Ella doesn't have hers yet, but that's where it feels that the Ella is playing this season. And last year we were like, man, is Valerie in the top 4, right? Is this an elite 4 now? And that was a little quick to jump to, but now, man.
I just want to point out a name you haven't even said yet. Jessica Weiss is sitting at number 4 in the standings after her top 3 finish this weekend. It's her first podium in a couple of years at an Elite Series or a major. She also has a 7th place finish at LVC. She was on the podium at one of the wraparound silver events and was 16th at Waco. Jessica Weiss, really nice start to the season.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
So keep an eye on that as she is currently sitting in the top 5. Also, Caroline Henderson watch. All that buzz coming into LVC. She comes out on the, they put her on the feature card. Oh, man. She was just not ready for that. But ends up finishing inside the top 10 at that tournament. And then is 29th at Waco and then 12th at Austin. So she's currently sitting at 18th in the standings. She's got a lot of potential.
She does.
Even if maybe it was a little too much crazy hype coming into LVC.
Wait, the disc golf community overreacted? No.
Okay. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Gannon Buhr will join us, and we will discuss his Open at Austin win, and we'll see what he'll tell us about what's going on with Prodigy and his sponsorship stuff. So we'll be right back.
Pound, the quality of our gear runs deeper than the stitching. That's why we make everything right here in the U.S., employing highly skilled, well-paid professionals. From bomb-proof Cordura fabric to YKK zippers and recycled plastics, we source the highest quality U.S. materials to make the most comfortable, durable pack in disc golf. Our lifetime warranty stays with the pack, not the purchaser. So regardless of how you find us, we will be here to make sure your pack stays on the course and out of the landfill. Pound's integrity is held together with more than just thread.
Joining us now on the Upshot is Gannon Buhr, who's coming off of his first DGPT Elite Series win at the Open at Austin. Gannon, congratulations. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for that. Just getting ready for Texas State's here in Houston, and I'm pretty excited for that. Silver Series are always nice to kind of have a toned down event, a little more relaxed.
Yeah, you gonna rock the cowboy hat for the tournament?
I honestly might. I'm gonna try to, but at the same time, it's kind of loose on my head, so I don't think it's gonna work. I did promise my caddy if I won, I'd wear it, but I guess I just assumed it would fit perfect, but I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, you gotta ask them about getting it sized properly for you. I'm sure they can do that. Awesome. Well, so how would you describe your win at this tournament? I mean, it's a kind of a different feel, I would imagine, from USDGC for a lot of reasons, especially considering just how crazy and tight it was down the stretch. All the way into the back 9 of the final round.
Yeah, it was a little bit different too, because no one had ever played that course before, so we're all kind of just running on a couple practice rounds and what we know just from what we've practiced. It's kind of hard to even see what other people do on the holes. Like a lot of times, especially USDGC, I'll see what other players have done in the past on holes, and then I'll try to kind of do the same thing or change it a little bit to my game plan. But when you're playing a brand new course, you got to kind of make, things work by yourself. So I guess that could have given me a little bit of an advantage when I went out and played. The other thing I think about is just a lot of people didn't like the course, and I always try to just keep a positive mindset about it. Just because if people are going to be, just hating on it and they're not already liking the course, they're probably not going to play as good. So I just tried to, just enjoy every second of it.
Yeah. We talked earlier about that mindset seeming to help you this weekend. Now that you're done with the course, how would you assess it? Do you think this is a good quality Pro Tour course that you'd like to see played again next year?
I think it is. I think there's probably like 3 holes that need to go. I'd say like hole 1, hole 6, and hole 17. So hole 1's just didn't have much scoring separation because it was too hard in a way, but it also didn't result in too many bogeys. Hole 6 was just that spike heiser that you had to get lucky and just throw kind of a dumb shot. And then 17 was that super wooded par 4 that it was, in a way, a little bit luck based. And the tee shot was weird because it was so short. So those are the 3 holes I think about whenever I think about the holes that they should get rid of. And then I think the rest of the course is pretty solid, actually. They could probably make a couple adjustments. I don't know any critiques myself, but I'm sure other people could see something, maybe better in the course. But I actually enjoyed it. I thought it scored pretty well. A lot of, birdie and bogey holes, and there's a lot of decision making, and it kind of forces you to go for some shots. Like hole 18, the final round, I had to go for that approach because there's no good way to lay it up. Like usually you have a place to lay it up, you can just putt for the win, or from like 100 feet. But I had to go for it because I didn't see a good way to lay that hole up.
Did you like 18?
I did. I thought it was what the fans want to see too is a pressure-filled moment, and that was definitely for me. It wasn't just going to be boring. I just pitch up, then I pitch up again, and then tap in for the win. I had to execute still one more shot, and that was the goal. The only issue with 18 was that I was kind of in the woods a little bit at the end. So maybe made it a little bit harder for spectating on the other side of the basket, but I thought it was a pretty solid finishing hole.
At what point, how much were you scoreboard watching? Because obviously scores were super tight. Were you trying to keep a track of what's going on, Austin Turner and Eagle and Paul and everybody else? Obviously, Paul's on your card, so
yeah, I definitely watched scores pretty much from like hole 3 and on. At almost every single hole, just because for me it almost helps as like a boost to see if I'm still in it. Like maybe I'm not playing so great, but I'm still only like 1 back. It kind of gives me a boost, or I'm playing good and I'm 2 ahead. So it helps me a little bit. It also helps me know like what shots to go for, or the the error on the side of being more safe than being more aggressive. Austin Turner coming up was actually a little bit scary because I think he was like 11 down through 15, and he finished the round 10 down. I think he had 18 under par for the tournament, so he was 19 under par with 3 holes to play. I think so.
That's right.
He could have definitely made a run, and it definitely put some pressure on me. But the main one was Simon, especially when he hit that 60-foot putt for par in 17. I could hear the roars, and I asked my caddy Gavin, I'm like, yo, who made that putt? And he was like, Simon. I'm like, crap, that was the one person I didn't want to make the putt. So that did kind of force me to have to, go more aggressive on 18. If not, I, could have just been okay with a bogey, but I had to go for it.
Yeah. At what point did you feel like you were in control of the tournament if you were able to execute shots?
I'd say, I think right around like hole 14, I just tapped in for my birdie to get me to 9 down. I just birdied 5 in a row. So yeah, 9 down through 14. I checked scores, and Cole and Eagle were actually kind of my 2 closest competitors. They were a couple holes back, and I had them by a couple strokes. So we were kind of even if they birdied out the next couple holes. And then I saw Eagle like on the fairway after 2 OBs. I'm like, oh, he's going to double. And then Cole, I think, ended up a couple holes later doubling 15. So they were both way out of it. And then it kind of just moved to Simon. That's pretty much it. But I felt pretty in control once I was kind of just checking the scoreboard a little bit more, especially after my birdie on 17. I thought I had it pretty locked up because I felt pretty comfortable with that second shot in 18.
Do you feel like you were able, and throughout the season so far, that you've been able to set aside some of the stuff that's going on off the course to be able to focus and play your best game?
Yeah, I don't think any of like what's been going on with me has affected my game like in the early season. I mean, my worst finish last year was 25th place, and I already got a 30th and a 25th at Las Vegas and Waco, and both of them just like felt weird where it felt like my game like wasn't that bad. It felt like I played like top 10, top 15 golf, but I just like ran into a couple things every round that just, I ran into these two-stroke swings that just make such a big difference now because the field's so tight. And I think it was just truly because my game wasn't quite there. I wasn't in the right mindset. It's always kind of weird coming into the season. For some reason, I wasn't nervous at all, and I think that kind of cost me to play a little bit worse. And then, for the Open to Austin, especially the final round, I was pretty nervous the whole round. And that's when I play my best disc golf, is when I'm super nervous. It forces me to make smarter decisions, execute on shots a little more specifically, and, make some more putts.
Had you, coming into the season, had you been playing with Prodigy discs in practice rounds, or were you using other discs?
I mean, I was kind of just playing with everything just for fun, honestly. I kind of do that just anyway. Just, I'll go out with some friends. We'll throw a bunch of just other discs. So I was kind of playing with everything just in case.
How would you assess where things stand right now with Prodigy? Obviously, they dropped the request for a preliminary injunction. Things seem to have calmed down a little bit on that front. So where are things with Prodigy and you?
Yeah, we're just working on getting a resolution right now. That way, we can kind of both come out of it okay. And I don't really have too much more on that. Just trying to get a resolution worked out.
Sure. Can you imagine yourself signing with Prodigy again next year, or is this it's over and it's just a matter of when it's over?
I mean, if for the right amount, yeah. I mean, I feel like that's how it's going to work for anything. I feel like the right amount would would definitely be worth it for me.
Do you have any regrets about how you've handled things with Prodigy over the last 6 months?
Not really. I kind of thought I went about it, pretty good. Trying not to make it too. I wasn't rude about any of it. I was trying to make it a smooth process myself, and then unfortunately that happened. So can't really control that too much, but I tried my best to make it just a clean, smooth process, and hope my goal is that no one would get I guess hurt from that. So yeah.
How did you respond when they file a lawsuit against you?
I don't even know. I was just a little bit surprised, I guess. I don't really know what to say on that one. I was just out there playing some disc golf at the All-Star event, and then it kind of, so, I don't know.
I guess the last question on this topic, do you expect that you will finish out this year with the Prodigy contract, or, there's obviously been discussions about buyouts and things already. Is there any progress on that and like an actual, what maybe end up being an amicable separation?
That I'm not sure of at this moment. I mean, that's kind of part of the resolution that we're trying to figure out, is just like what's going to happen. What's the next step? No matter what direction it's in, we're still working on coming to a conclusion, whether it's, with them or away from them or signing more years. So yeah, we're trying to figure that out still.
Gotcha. Are you directly involved with that, or do you have like a lawyer handling that at this point?
Yeah, I got someone helping with me.
Yeah. Okay. Back to the Open at Austin. What is it, what does it mean to you to win this tournament? Does it feel like less important than USDGC? I would imagine.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely less important. I did want, my goal was to get, I think, 2 Elite Series wins this year on the Pro Tour, and or another major. And I'm already on my way to, it feels good to get that win pretty early in the season. It's gonna if anything, just take less pressure off my next tournament I play, just because I already know I have at least one, which would, it's always nice to have. Even like Paul Beth, he only had one win last year, and then he won Worlds. So I guess that's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm obviously I'm trying to win every event. I'm going to do my best to, like I said, win every event. My goal this season is to win an event like super dominant, by like 8 strokes. That's my goal. And I think I can do it. I probably lost like 8 to 10 strokes on putting at Austin. My putting was not good. So I think if my driving and my putting's on, I can definitely have one of those dominant wins, because I was number 1 in tee to green, which is, not super usual for me. Usually I'm, top 5 in strokes gained putting. So in Austin, I was like 18th or something. So not too great. But if I can get both aspects of my game dialed in and have that, like, I don't know, I guess clutch factor when the moments count, I think I can put together a pretty hot tournament.
Do you think, I mean, most players probably do to some extent, do you think you're the best player on tour if things are clicking?
I don't know. I guess that's hard to think, because like I'm trying to think of like where my, I guess, ceiling right now is compared to, like, I mean, Paul when he's on is like sometimes unbeatable. Ricky when he's on is just like the man, So
Sure.
I don't know. It's not usual that we're all on at the same time. I try not to like talk myself up, so I'm just going with whatever people say. I guess I don't really have too much of an opinion about myself.
How would you say your game has changed? Maybe even like within the last year or so. Like if you go back to the beginning of 2022. You come out of the gates at LVC and you come really close, obviously, and losing the playoff. How has your game changed? And that could be like the actual, throwing of the discs, but also maybe on a mentality standpoint.
Yeah, I don't know. Mentality's a little bit, I find it easier. I don't know, like now that I have a couple wins, it's easier to like not feel too stressed whenever it comes to those like situations. I'm obviously nervous still, but I'm not like super stressed out like I used to be. But another thing, I feel like I belong now, where before I like had to prove myself. I'm still trying to prove myself every day, but getting a major elite series all within just a couple months. The USDGC was pretty late in the season, and this is only the third event of the season. So like I don't know, I'm just trying to prove it to myself. That's changed, and my actual how I play the course is a little bit different. I probably have like 50 to maybe 100 feet more distance now than I did like early last year.
Wow.
That's just been putting on weight, little bit more muscle, a little more speed. But like a good example is hole 17 at Las Vegas Challenge at the end of a course. It's like a 450. Last year was like a 450 par 3, and I was looking at scores. I'm like, hey, if I go par, I'm going to be on lead card around 2, and that's all I cared about. And where now I'd be like, okay, let me go birdie. That way I can get ahead. Before I was like, I just want to be on the lead card. Now I'm trying to attack even further. So, and especially like USDGC, I went more aggressive when I needed to. Like hole 10's that 480-foot par 4 that you can eagle, and I eagled it 3 of the 4 rounds, and the one round I missed the LZOB by like 2 inches. So just going for shots that, I don't know, it's a weird line, because there's like a difference between like aggressive play and being good at it, because a lot of like maybe a 10-15 player is going for those shots, but if he can play the same exact game plan I do, but if he doesn't have the execution, then it's not going to matter. Then you can actually hurt yourself. So I think that's where like Calvin's been doing super good this season, and I saw that at the All-Star event. He was just throwing far consistently where he wanted to every time. He's putting. Calvin might be like the best putter in the world right now. He's putting so good, but he's able to be aggressive and still be super accurate with it. So there's a weird like threshold where you have to be good enough to go for the aggressive shots for it to actually pay off. Other than that, you have to play a little bit safer to so you don't drop as many strokes.
Right. Yeah, it's like take the risk reward, but actually have a chance at the reward.
Yeah. Yep.
When you mentioned, so two things. First, I want to ask you about your workout regimen. How much weight have you put on, and like what approach did you take to sort of, bulking up in the off season?
Yeah, but before I left for tour, I haven't weighed myself since, so probably like 3 weeks to a month. I haven't weighed myself, but I put on 25 pounds after USDGC. I was 149 after USDGC, and then I was 175 when I left. So I put on a good bit of weight. So, I mean, not all of it's muscle, obviously, because my goal was just to put on weight. I was kind of just trying to eat as much as I could, if it was good or bad. But one thing that helped is I did like a protein smoothie every night with, a lot of good nutrients in it. And it was like probably 32 ounce, 36 ounce smoothie. So it was a pretty big smoothie every single night. I did something with my legs pretty much every single night. That was a big goal of mine just because I've always had like super, super skinny legs. Now I actually have a little bit of muscle on my legs. And I noticed it like right away at the All-Star event. I didn't get tired after my rounds. Like my legs weren't sore at all. So that helped a bunch. And then I just worked on just like hip stability, upper body with I worked with a guy early in the season. His name's Josh. More on like muscle building. And then as the season got closer, I worked with Seth Muncie to try to get my stability and mobility a little bit better.
That's a lot of weight to put on in like 4 months.
Yeah.
You feel like you're feeling good out there, not like heavy?
No, I definitely want to lose with gaining the weight, especially because my diet's not like amazing. I try to eat a little bit better, but like I did put on some fat, and I'm trying to. I definitely want to get rid of that as well, but I still want to maintain the muscle. So it's gonna be hard for me, but I definitely want to like try to eat healthier, and then maybe get a good amount of cardio in every week, even like on tour. Maybe like the days leading up to the event, skip the last day of practice, and then then I'm still rested up and ready for the tournament. Because I definitely do feel like I sometimes I feel a little bit sluggish just because I do have that extra weight. But then other times I feel like way more powerful, way more explosive. I mean, my
Sure.
forehand at this last weekend was, I was feeling pretty good about it. Yuli even called it like world class, but I don't know about that, but it was feeling pretty good. A lot of people weren't reaching hole one, and I was able to put it circle one during round two, and it never got to flat. It was on a hyzer the whole way. So I think my forehand's been feeling really good. My backhand, I'm just able to rip into shots a little bit more and get that extra distance I need to, and still be able to throw an overstable disc to always land consistently left or consistently in the fairway where I want it to.
What do you need to do to get your putting back to where you want it to be?
I have no idea. I just gotta, kind of mess with things, experiment with different. I've tried watching videos of myself when I don't know, putting's just a little bit different, I feel like, than driving. Driving, it's kind of easier to really see what you're doing wrong. Putting's a little bit more difficult. It's because it's so specific to the tips of your fingers. And it seemed like my putt has got so nose down to where it's flying through the air. If the basket's here, it's just flying through the air like that, which is so weird. Gavin laughed at me because I had my putt on hole 16. He was like, the disc was literally like this when it's flying through the air. And when I putt, I can see the entire bottom side of the disc, and it's been not good in headwinds, especially because it just slams straight into the cage every time. And I round one at Austin, I only spin putted the whole round. So, because it was super windy, so I did an only spin putt round. Yeah, I just need to maybe practice putt a little bit more, experiment, maybe try to putt more nose up, because that's the only issue. Is it's just so nose down. That's pretty much the only issue I have.
It's funny to hear you talk about your putting not being where you want it to be when you shot 90%, 33%, which is still elite numbers in aggregate.
Yeah,
but
they just didn't feel good when they went in.
Right.
Because you can have them go in, but if you're not, I didn't feel confident at all. I mean, it was weird. I feel like I either made it or I airballed it straight OB. During round two, I I putted one from like 50 feet, airballed it, and then I putted it straight OB. The next hole, I missed a 40-footer and it rolled 150 down a hill.
Right.
It just everything, like the wheels were kind of falling off with my putting a little bit in the round there. I 3-putted, missed a circle 1 putt. I hate that. Missing circle 1s are like the worst thing ever. So those are unacceptable. I mean, unless it's super windy, but I'll work on it. It'll get better. If I can get my my driving and my putting dialed in, I think I could have a chance every single weekend.
So tell us about this Texas State's course. Have you played it yet?
No, never played it. I'm gonna walk it today. I might throw a couple shots, probably not. I want to rest my back's been tight the entire season so far, and I haven't really had any time to rest. Even when it's tight, I just play through it, which I don't think I should. And my fingers have been splitting pretty bad, and they'll bleed, and they almost like swell up a little bit, like on my fingernails kind of, and it hurts to throw right away, like when you first start your round. So I think I'm just gonna bring like 10 putters out and just practice putting every hole. By the end of the round, I'll have 300 putts in. So that's kind of my goal, I guess.
Gotcha. I mean, do you think maybe you should take the weekend off, considering the back and the hands and stuff?
No, I'll be fine for sure. I just need to take a couple days off and keep stretching. Spoken
like a teenager.
Yeah.
We once upon a time we could all do that.
Well, I mean, I used to be able to just. I wish I could almost go back to the days where I could just get out of the car and rip a shot. But I feel like pretty much every pro can't really do that anymore. Yes, we're able to throw it further in a way with less effort, but the less effort is because our whole body is working perfectly to where our muscles are working almost harder, in a way. So, the further you throw, the harder you're really working to throw. And that's kind of how that's been for me. I just need to keep stretching. I mean, it hasn't been unbearable where I can't play. So unless it gets to a really bad point, I'm not going to quit playing.
Got it. So, looking at the rest of your competition, who's been impressive to you so far this season, whether because they've just been playing consistently or they've worked on their skills in the off season or something like that?
Calvin, I think, is going to be one of the best players this year. He's so consistent. He already has a win. I think he has a win in 2 podiums, which is just crazy. I mean,
that's right.
That's so good at this, the level that the game's at. I'd like to get there for sure. I think I'll get better as the season goes on, but Calvin just seems to be consistent, throwing shots where he needs to and making his big putts. And he's not having an off round. He's just playing good every single round. And he's making it look easy. It doesn't seem like he's trying too hard, which is a scary thought for sure. I'm trying to think of another player that is. Calvin has just seemed the most dominant to me of anybody. I can't really think of anyone else.
The only other player who's been in the top 10 all 3 tournaments is Kyle Klein.
Yeah, he's definitely really consistent. Me and him are, I think the stat came out, the only players who've never missed the top 30, or at least in
over the last 2 years.
Couple years. Yeah. I think the one time I missed it was when I just got my knee surgery and it was my first tournament back. So I don't even count that, and that's my only missed cash to date was 2020 Jonesboro. I missed it by stroke because I double bogeyed the last hole. But that's fine. Yeah, Kyle's game is. It was good to see him get that win because he does he's obviously good enough to win. Maybe in the past he's kind of struggled last year. It kind of felt like he struggled to get into that situation to win. He'd always kind of finish 5th, 3rd even. He had a good amount of podiums, a couple 7th places, but he just couldn't seem to win. But getting that win early in Waco, especially after the chase card, his game's looking pretty good, and I think he's feeling pretty confident with his bag as well.
All right, last thing here. Let's look ahead to the major. We've got the Champions Cup coming up in about a month, 3 weeks. You obviously had a good tournament there last year. You're in 5th. What do you need to do to win that event?
Start hot. Last year I started not great, and I pulled off a 13 down the final round to get up into the 5th place position. I need to start hot. I need to get on that lead card during round after round 1 and stay on it. I need to just get in a rhythm, because that final round when I shot my 13 down, it felt like I just couldn't mess up. And it was amazing. If I could have gotten that rhythm a little bit earlier in the tournament, I think I kind of had a good shot to win. I think it plays pretty good in my strengths, is like throwing the correct shot and throwing the most highest percentage shot. But it's still like, it's woods golf, but you have to throw far in the woods, which is like my favorite kind of disc golf. Far in the woods, where I'm not like having to throw a touchy line. I'm really throwing a mid range super hard, and that's where I hit my gaps the best. So I think that the course plays my game. It's my favorite course ever, and I think I think I have a decent shot to win. That's a tournament I definitely want to win, because I think I have a really good shot.
Well, it's going to be fun. Georgia in April. It's a
Yeah.
nice time to be playing some golf there.
For sure.
Well, Gannon, congrats on the win, and good luck at what is it, the Innova Open at the Texas States or something, blah 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 like that.
I keep forgetting that. I think it's the Innova Open at Texas States, I think, is what it is.
Yes. All right, Gannon, appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me on.
Gannon Buhr with us here on the Upshot. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Upshot. It's time for a new segment. Well, not really a new segment. A segment we've done for a long time. It's had names over the years. We most recently called it the Drop Zone, and then everyone was like, hey guys, why are you stealing Terry Miller's podcast name? Which we didn't realize we had done that. So sorry to Terry. Now this segment is called 30-second rule. We get 30 seconds on these topics, and if we run over, there's no punishment. It's just like the Pro Tour. So here we go. First up in 30-second rule, Josh, take it away.
Yeah. There's a clip. Eagle throws a grenade up and over trees, not a long shot by any means, and comes down and just hits Dave, the camera guy for Gatekeeper, just right on top of his head. And it ended up being a pretty nasty injury. He's okay. Had to get staples in his head. But you hate to see it. I mean, it's always a risk and a concern, but I'm hoping Dave is recovering well and feeling better, but definitely a scary incident for sure. I heard some people say that the sound was so loud that they thought Eagle hit the basket.
Oh my God. I mean, it square up, hit him straight on top of the head, completely vertical disc on the grenade. And it goes to show you, like, you can really get hurt. Like, I wouldn't necessarily have thought that a grenade could do that much damage, right? Like a full power drive into somebody, like if a pro shanks it and hits somebody in the gallery or something. But wow, it's a pretty gnarly looking injury. I guess the question is, of course, what do you do about this? I mean, what can you do? It's not like he was in a position where he was about to, standing right by the basket. I mean, he was back in the trees. Maybe there needs to be a little bit more care paid to knowing what a player is throwing. Because if you're anticipating a grenade, you can at least have eyes up and be ready for that. And I've also seen some people say, like, they should be wearing, like, hats with a little protective, like, plastic sheath in it, kind of like a mini hard hat, but it's like still like a baseball cap. I mean, I don't know. Like, this seems like kind of a freak incident, but hopefully Dave's okay. That's the number one thing.
Yeah. Next up, Paul Macbeth has an interview, and we've actually got the clip here for you to watch. This is his interview at the end of round one when they grabbed him just coming off of the course. We'll take a listen, and then we will chat about that.
It just kind of, I was throwing the disc well, just not getting in positions. But I just had to tell myself, I'm not a big fan of this course. So just like we all have to play it, just got to get through it. Just 2 more rounds now. But I guess I put myself in a good position as far as what you're saying scores are.
17 and 18, the finish. Break down those holes.
Terrible holes. Terrible holes. I probably had the best drive that anyone had all day on that hole and just absolutely nothing. I mean, I'm sitting there trying to jump putt a driver, just get to the gap. I could have given a better bid on the putt, and that's kind of what led to the bogey. But, I mean, I throw a drive like that, and I get absolutely nothing. So I'm probably just going to jump putt off the tee tomorrow and go a different route. And 18, I don't know. I don't think it's a great finishing hole. They got this whole property, but
Well, so Paul obviously doesn't have nice things to say about this course. You know, to me, I guess this just mostly puts in contrast for me the way that we heard Gannon talk about the course. You know, and it's like kind of like a mindset thing. In some ways, it doesn't surprise me that Paul, after the tournament, said that he felt like he was having some mindset issues, and that's what was hurting him on the course. I don't know if that's specifically what he was referring to, but, you know, you got to play the course that's in front of you. You know, I there was like a pretty good conversation about his battle with hole 17. The Pro Tour even did a super clip of Paul versus hole 17, and then they deleted it. Why did they delete it? The conspiracy. I thought it was great. I don't know why they deleted it. You know, Paul made some amazing shots on that hole. You know, he had in the final round, he does that backdoor skip shot that was so amazing. And then the putt wouldn't stick. Brutal.
Yeah. This, I think, though, moves to kind of a different topic just a little bit. Should this course and the tournament continue to stay on tour? Charlie, I'll let you take this first.
This tournament's going to stay on tour 100%. There is it is clear that Austin should host a Pro Tour. I mean,
especially during South by Southwest.
The crowds were popping. We already got an email from somebody who was like, I happened to be in town for South by Southwest. Or no, not even. They were in town for something else in Austin. They were able to go to some concerts because of South by Southwest, and they went on Friday and went and watched the Pro Tour event.
Well, we also got an email from somebody at South by Southwest.
There you go.
So we got a couple. They can't have to go down for work.
And so it just makes sense. I think clearly, you know, it's hard to assess exactly what that bump was from, you know, how many people were there because of South by Southwest that then went to the tournament. But, you know, it's clearly non-zero. And, you know, the crowds were awesome. The course, it's fine. It had some good stuff about it. It needs tuning. But that's true of basically every first-time course on tour. I don't think this is the greatest debut of all time, but I also don't think it was like a disaster. As I said on the Rapid React show, Josh, I need more visual clarity one way or another, whether that's from the broadcast team or that's from visual elements on the course. It's sometimes hard to feel like you know what you're looking at.
I'll repeat a little bit what I said on the Rapid Reacts as well then, because I think that this course actually offers a lot of potential relative to other golf courses in being able to provide that visual clarity. Because I think that while it isn't as specific as a woods golf per se, the trees do actually do a nice job of framing the route, of framing how wide the hyzer has to be, and where some of those lines are going to be. I think the camera work needs to get a little bit better with the new course. I think some of the holes need to be tuned a little bit better. And those two things together mean that I really think this actually does have the appeal and have the opportunity to be very visually easy to follow. It reminded me in a lot of ways of the Preserve, and the way that some of those holes are framed very nicely by trees to give you some clarity on what is still a technical ball golf course. The other thing that I really liked about this, I kind of got this impression just from looking at the caddy book, and I think it played out even more to be correct. What a variety of shots that players were required to use. I think this course is one of the best at requiring people to throw everything in their bag, from rollers to grenades to making Paige Pierce and Hannah Blomers go forehand off the tee on hole 1. That is something that not every course has and is able to bring. And so, especially because the typical critique of ball golf courses is that, it's just a hyzer fest. It's just throwing far. It's just about one style of shots. I thought this one offered incredible diversity. And so for me personally, I really hope it's here next year. I think a little bit of tuning, and this one could jump into a very popular course because it has a lot to offer that I think makes it stand out from other courses on tour.
All right, we're going to have to skip Purse Watch for now because the PDGA page is not updated and we don't have the details from the Pro Tour. So we'll get you that when we can. We'll probably do that on Thursday. But let's take a look at our picks. We both scored 2 points this week. Josh had Calvin Heimberg on his podium. He gets a point there. He also had Missy Gannon on his podium. He gets a point there. I went whiff in FPO, but I got 2 of the 3 podium finishers in MPO, Calvin Heimberg and Gannon Buhr. Unfortunately, I did not pick Gannon to win, so just 2 points for me. Josh, how did it go in the over-under department?
In the over-under, I do take that one. You set the line at 1.5 Lone Star players.
Yeah, it's
Big
fat zilch.
Big fat zilch.
Kind of a tough weekend for the Lone Star crew.
It really was.
Yeah, I mean, I saw some people talking about, well, Mason Ford was the highest finisher, so Mint Discs has the highest MPO finisher over Lone Star at their own tournament, and I'm sure that's making the Mint headquarters folks have a little smile this week.
Probably is.
So we have our whole 18 rankings. We're switching to a 10-star system from a 5-star system, just to give us a little bit more ability to kind of have some nuance. So out of 10 stars, Josh, how would you rate this whole 18? It was a fairly polarizing whole 18 from the pro side.
Mm-hmm. I am going to give this. I'm going to give it a 6.
Okay.
I was debating between a 6 and a 7. Like that's where my feelings were, and here's why. I don't think it's the most visually appealing whole 18. I think a lot of other whole 18s have a visual appeal to them, especially on the green, that is very aesthetically pleasing. Even like Vegas, for example, that's an excellent hole 18 in a lot of ways. That green as well is very visually appealing, even if it uses kind of a cart path OB, and there could be some argument. The water on it, Waco, same thing, right? Very beautiful, even though I don't love Waco hole 18 as a competitive side for a couple of reasons. I do really enjoy the visual aesthetics of the water shot that you talked about. So I don't think there's anything pretty about this hole, and that's kind of unfortunate for a finishing hole that you really do want to have that kind of aesthetics and that appeal. But I love a hole on hole 18 that can have a 3-stroke swing, and this is one of them, because birdie was absolutely attainable. We watched Nico do it in round 1 in the crazy windy conditions.
True.
And there were a handful, right? It's definitely not a lot of birdies in round 1 when it was super windy, but Nico did it in the lead card. And then that number went up significantly to some 20 odd. I'm not going to sit here and count them, but 20 odd players are birdieing hole 18. But there were also plenty of bogeys, double bogeys, triple bogeys. Par's still the biggest group, but overall, in terms of a hole 18 breakdown, for round 3, on the MPO side, it was 18% got a birdie, 41% par, 29% bogey, 12% were double or worse. Excellent numbers, I think, on the MPO side that are really what I want. I think it's a touch too long on the FPO side. So I'd probably give it a 6 for the MPO and maybe drop that to like a 5 for the FPO. I think the problem there is it just isn't tuned well enough for the FPO side. You need to shorten it up because only 6% are getting birdies. I want that number to be closer to the MPO side where it's, the 12 to 15% get the birdies, and then still very punishing, right? I think that's fine. It just needs to be a touch shorter on the FPO side. So probably a 6 on the MPO, 5 on the FPO. Yeah.
2 of the 3 birdies in the final rounds in FPO were from Circle 2 makes. Madison Walker and Raven Klein. Evelina Salonen parked it. Evelina Salonen starting to look a little sharper. But yeah, for all the things we said about this course, having different tee pads and basket locations for FPO, it still feels like they're asking MPO players to give feedback on FPO layouts, and it's just not quite right. Mm-hmm. Folks, you need to ask the FPO players, or hey, ask a player who can throw, who's 950 rated and throws 350 to 375. What they think about the layout. Yeah. If that's what you must do, from the local Austin community. So just still like too many holes that weren't really tuned correctly. But I like the narrow, tricky green. I mean, Gannon's approach shot was awesome. I think I like the challenge of the hole, and there was a ton of scoring separation, but it was pretty punishing. Maybe a little bit more could be done to feel like it makes it a little bit more fair. But I don't know. Overall, I like that this was the hardest hole on the course all 3 rounds for MPO.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like that. I like a hard
too.
hole 18. I like that you know it's not over going into 18. You know, you don't want a super easy hole. I like
even the safe play is still kind of difficult,
as we've talked about. Yeah. So I'm gonna give it 6. Yeah, I'm gonna give it 6.5 stars total
for MPO and FPO.
I mean, I guess if I have to score them separately, which I guess we could do that, but I'm thinking about it holistically. If I was scoring them separately, I would give it a 7 for MPO and a 5 for FPO.
Okay. All right.
I rounded up to 6.5.
All right. You rounded up to the half mark.
Okay. So thank you so much for tuning in. We're looking forward to getting to some mail this week. So make sure you get your emails in over at upshot@ultiworld.com. Hit us up in the Discord if you're a subscriber. We'll be talking about spectator reactions to the first few Elite Series of the year. So if you have thoughts, if you went to LVC, Waco, or Austin, send us your thoughts, upshot@ultiworld.com. What'd you think of the experience? How was it being out there? How did, how was course management with crowds and stuff? We love to hear from you. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you Thursday right here on The Upshot.